Sandra all the time is here with a cold heart true. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama, call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra. And
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth. Welcome to another episode with more truth telling, more problem solving, and of course, more tea spilling than ever before. Sit back, students, grab your tea and turn up the volume because class is now in session. Call in at 936-2626 because your voice matters. Share your opinion on issues that matter the most to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning, K-Man. Happy Friday. How is everybody doing? Hard to believe it's Friday already. Oops, listen. People pinging me. Ay. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everyone doing? All right. Good morning, one, and good morning, all. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Give me 1 second, and then I'm going to turn my camera on because I know you guys are ready. It's like, I can't see you. I'm aware. I can't see you, Sandy. Where are you? So we've got some candidates coming up for you this morning. Can we do a big shout out to all the candidates who have the cojones for the cold hard truth? Yes, some of them are joining us this morning. I give them credit. I didn't know I was a scary person, but apparently y'all claim I'm scary. Oh God. We're not going to get into any sus today. We're going to spend this time with the candidates. But I want to do a little bit of sus next week because apparently one of the wannabe candidates who decided not to run is all up in her feelings now about the situation and all upset with me. Did a whole 20-minute video about how she's going to sue me. I'm like, Lord, y'all are not ready for politics. Trust me. If the first thing that comes to mind when someone says something about you, which by the way, suing me for what? The truth? You can't sue me for the truth, honey child. The truth shall set you free. There's a truth and then there's my opinion. And I think I've made it very, very clear on this individual for sure. Let's just say that she's got a lot of time in her hands. So if you want to waste time suing people, go right ahead. That's no problem. We're more than capable of defending ourselves around here. And also upset, apparently, that nobody wants to return her phone call. I'm like, geez, I wonder why. Her brother, Kenneth, won't call her. Don Seymour is not returning her phone call. She's calling the station manager. Nobody wants to talk to her. Girl, as these young people would say, bye, Felicia. There's a reason why nobody wants to talk to you. Take a hint, or I can help you take a hint if you're struggling on your own with it. Folks, come ready. And when you don't come ready, and media and other people say, you're not ready. This is the big leagues. Please. If your first thought is you're going to be suing somebody, you are definitely not ready for politics. 59 candidates running, and half of those shouldn't be. I'm just saying. Most of them need to take several seats. Anywho, government needs the money. So thanks for assisting with filling government coffers. That's $1,000. We need to do a poll. How many of you think they should increase it from $1,000 to at least $5,000? I think they're lowballing their value, and I don't think it's ever been increased. Certainly not in recent times. So, I say, listen, government needs money now because they're spending it like it's water, like they're drinking water. So, we got to help them out where we can. And you figure, I think, 1 second here. I think also the threshold for getting your money back should be raised as well. So fewer people will be getting it back. Make that 15 or 20% of the votes. Because when you have 5 people running, honey child, that's a hot mess. And that. All right. Ooh, honey child, there I am. Need to adjust the camera just a little bit. All right. So before our first guest comes on, we're waiting on her. Miss Julie, roll on through. We're waiting on you, honey child. Let me go ahead and let you guys know, for those of you who were ahead of the curveball there, and you got your dash cam orders in early, good for you, because they're here. Let me show you real quick. Da-da, da-da-da-da. And all of your other bits and pieces, da-da-da-da. So real quick, your beautiful dash cam. You're getting the 4 Pro, the Vantrue 4 Pro. This alone's like 400 and odd change. Then you're getting your, so everything is in the kit that you need. You're getting your USB card. You've got a CPL. This is a circular polarizer lens. So this is to cut down on sun reflection because we live in the tropics. We get a lot of that. So remember the video I was showing you guys on Monday with Stacy's camera, how you could see like the dashboard, like you were catching the reflection off of the mirror and stuff like that. This gives you the crystal clear look that you want from your dash cam. And then this is the hard wiring kit, which I'll give you guys Kevin's details, but this hard wires it in the vehicle so that you can take advantage of the parking mode. And the parking mode is important because that means when you're not in the car, your car is still being protected and still being, watched for you. So you know how those people like to go around and try to open up your car door and steal your money, and people open up their doors and hitting you and dinking your car and hitting you in the parking lot and running away? Parking mode, gotcha. All right. So now there is one other piece of this kit, which is the remote control. So when you're driving, this camera does have voice activation. Like you can say, take photo, and it'll take a photo of something or whatever. But the company kind of screwed up that part of the order. And I spoke to them yesterday. And so they're going to quick ship me that. So, I can get you your cameras so you can schedule Kevin, because that is just something you stick on the interior of the car. That doesn't require any like setup or anything necessarily. Just, plug the battery and whatever. So that'll be coming in the next couple of days. So the kits are ready to go. And then once that little remote comes in, we'll go ahead and get you started there. All right. All right. So I don't see her. Let's get going. Refresh. You gotta refresh, Mamacita. All right. So we're just waiting on Miss Julie to come in, and then we are gonna get the show on the road here. By the way, this is just the first order. So if you want to, get one because you were still thinking about it, and now you see that a lot of people are getting theirs. A lot of smart people are thinking, yeah, we need that, because you never know when you're going to buck up on a Larry and Linda. This is a Larry and Linda special, honey child. Yes, so come on through, just WhatsApp me and I'll add you to the next order, okay? And I did get a few extras in this order, by the way, but I think most of those are gone. But just message me because I may have 1 or 2 left in any event. All right, beautiful folks, good morning. Who we got here? Irvelyn, yes, happy Friday. Robert's in the house. Miss Yulene is here. Akil, joining us from North Carolina. He says TGIFFFFFF Friday. Damaris, good morning. His sidekick, AJ and Akil, both joining us. Patricia, Miss Wee Wee, good morning to Miss Jean, Diamond Princess Sapphire, so good to see you. Did you guys have a good time yesterday for Ash Wednesday? Got a little midday break. Stephen joining us from the UK. Irvelyn, Stephen, you voting in the election? Olivia, YouTuber, says you aren't scary. They're scared. Aw, thanks. I was beginning to wonder if it was me. I keep telling them I don't bite anybody, I swear. All right, Mr. Dean. Mr. Dean or Miss Dean? Oh, Lord. You have one of those unisex names. I'm trying to remember. Are you a Mr. Dean or Miss Dean? Let me know. I know, YouTuber. Your sentiments are my sentiments, honey chill. Barbara G in the house. Marshall Forbes, good morning. Good morning. Yeah, don't worry, Miss Barbara. I change a little setting where sometimes you're going to just see the black screen while I'm doing something. But I'm coming. I know y'all like to see me in all of my morning glory. YouTuber says the fee should increase to 10K for wasting her time. I know what you mean, YouTuber. Morning, Miss Andrea. Yes, the latter, Akil. I went and collected. Quick time. Jaren, good morning, young Jaren. How you doing? Miss Barbara says, all good. You're coming through beautiful on YouTube. Good to hear. Miss Hannah's in the house. Shaka is here. Good morning, Shaka. Happy Friday. And we got Kara Tibbetts joining us from the BRAC. the Bluff specifically. Carrie, how you doing? How is the air? I mean, the air quality. You guys had a little fire on Tuesday that looks like it took them a minute to get under control. I was a bit surprised. I'm like, wow, the BRAC is having dump fires too. Lord Jesus. No, sir. All right, give me one quick second. Let me just grab the links here, and then we are going to pull Miss Julie in. So let me introduce to you, and she's going to help us introduce herself as well, I should say. The beautiful Julie Hunter. If you're from the lovely district of West Bay, those are my people, you know. West Bay has come to find out we're family after all. A lot closer than I thought, I must say. And I ain't got no problems with that, right? I'm going to own the West Bay side of the family. And so, yes, I'm very, very pleased to be welcoming another West Bay candidate on the program, none other than Ms. Julie Hunter. Good morning, Ms. Julie. For some reason, I'm getting some feedback from you. So you're listening. You might have a tab or something else open. So let me just mute you for a second. I'm actually going to pull you out of the studio. And I'm going to have you work on that for me. So somehow I'm getting, normally when it's feedback like that, that means you have something open that's playing it in another tab sometimes or something else. So just check your computer tabs and see. Wagwan. Happens to the best of us. It has happened to even me before, trust me. Sometimes I'm like, why am I hearing myself? What's going on? All right, toll-free number for Flow customers, 936-2626. Shout out to Flow. Gave me the hookup finally after years of begging. My poor knees had gotten all scratchy from begging them. All right. Caymanians in Florida, good morning to all of you. Good morning to my Windsor Park crew. And of course, good morning to the Washington Boulevard folks as well. All right, shall we try that again, Miss Julie? Give me a little thumbs up. Are we ready? Hello? Miss Julie, you there? Good morning. Can you hear me? I'm not so sure she can hear me. Oh, okay. Let me give her crew a second here. Yeah, so all right, check your audio. Got some audio. All right. Okay. So just check that out while we do a few more good morning messages. Good morning, Anthony. How are you? He says that was the first work the BRAC Fire Service got in years. No, Anthony, I wouldn't say that, because remember now the fire service, big shout out to them. They're the ones, unfortunately, who have to go to the scene of all these accidents and stuff like that. Yeah. So let me see here now. So yeah, I mean, don't listen. They do other things. Miss Marjorie, 450. Carrie said the air has been good since yesterday. Evelyn says sketchy people are always afraid to face genuine people. Girl, there's just no alignment of the spirits. Miss Juanita, I haven't seen you in a minute. You're joining us from Georgia. Hey, wow, good for you. So nice to hear and hear from you. C. Ebanks, good morning to you. Yes, Miss Carrie said, sorry to update you. That is not, homes are burned down in other situations. That's right. Poor Miss Carrie's mom had a house fire where she lost everything. So no, Anthony, the BRAC Fire Service, I'm not saying they're as busy as Grand Cayman, obviously, but they work. Leave them poor people alone. Leave her firemen alone. Gosh, I couldn't do that job. Being at the scene of an accident, Lord have mercy. Thank you to our fire service. and they're EMTs as well. They do an amazing job. Buenos dias, Miss Alba. Just give me a thumbs up, Miss Julie, when you're ready, okay? Because you should be able to hear me. And then I need that lapel mic like right on your lapel, like literally right here. That's why we call it a lapel mic, is because you need to put it like right on the lapel, right on your collar. Good morning, Miss Gladys. So let me do a big shout out while we're waiting on Miss Julie. Yep, just check the PC settings. So let's all right, let's go ahead and play a little video while we're waiting on Miss Julie, and then we're going to try her again right after this video. So I already see questions coming in for her. So just as an FYI, she is just here very, very briefly this morning. And in fact, let me see here now. We are going to have her on again in due course. So she's not here for, let me just see where this thing downloaded. Okay, let me just see where this went. Okay, hold on one second here. Somehow I've lost track of this file. So she's not really here for questions today. She's just going to be telling us a little bit about an event that she's got coming up. And then we will be touching bases with her in the coming weeks so that you can learn a bit more about her. All right. So I think she's ready now as well. So we're going to go ahead and grab her. Just want to make sure. I need to. All right. So give me 1 second. I see what's going on at my end. Lots of tech and moving parts to the show. Trust me. All right, Miss Julie, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? How are you?
I'm good. Turn the volume down just a smidgen for me. You're nice and clear, but you're coming a little bit loud. So if we can pump you down just a tad bit, go ahead and speak again for me.
Good morning.
Yes, you sounded good. You sounded good. So good morning, Julie Hunter. So good to see you and have you in the studio with us. This is your first time, so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Exciting morning. Yes, first
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. So you're here to tell us a little bit about yourself and then an event that you've got coming up. You're only here for a few minutes, but we will have you back. So our guests are anxious to talk to you and to see you further. So that's fine. Not to worry. She'll be back in. But Ms. Julie, when people have never heard of you before and they go, well, who on earth is Julie Hunter? Tell us what they should know about who you are.
Well, first of all, I'm a proud West Bayer, born and bred.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have 3 children, 3 grandchildren. I've been married for 45 years this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I worked at Cayman National for 35 years, had a very lucrative career, of which I'm very proud.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to study while I was working, so I'm proud of those accomplishments. Sometimes it's not always easy to juggle, family and work and study, but I got through that, flying colors. And I would say that as I look back on that journey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm so humbly proud of the things that I was able to accomplish while I was at Cayman National.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Well, we'll get into some of those details of what you did on another day at CNB, because we want to hear a bit more about your work life. And you said that you were studying, so we'd love to hear more about your specific qualifications professionally and what you've done. And we know that you've been involved in your community for a number of years as well. So tell us a little bit about your community service.
Sandra, yes, that's one of the hallmarks of my life, actually. So I'm glad you asked that. I come from a heart of compassion. I love to serve. I've served in my community for over 25 years. My most recent service has been Circle of Love Women's Ministries, which I founded and was able to manage for 17 plus years. I know that a lot of people have heard of Circle of Love and have experienced it. We've been able to do a lot in the community as far as helping families. We did many events monthly. We did sometimes community events for the families. Like several last year we did a couples retreat. We did a seminar on grief. There was a lot. There's still a lot, but at one time there was a lot of grief in the community, and we felt that we should do something around that. So we did that one last year, and then a lot of times we were just it's not a big nonprofit like some of the others, but we were able to help many families that in their time of need, whether it was helping to assist with glasses for the children, food vouchers for the children, whether it was sometimes we were able to help pay a light bill, different things in the community. There's a lot of needs, and we were able to fill some of those smaller needs that maybe some of the other nonprofits would not be looking at. So I'm just thankful that we were able to do that. I was born and raised with a very spiritual grandmother who was like, her name was Teresa, but she was like a Mother Teresa in our community. And so, we would do service most weeks with her. And so that got me, really started as a person, and that lived with me, So I think that heritage, will always stay with me. That's who I am. I love to serve. I love to work. I'm a person that when I see something to be done, I jump in and do it. I don't just wait for someone else to do it. I'm not elected yet, but I've already started working on different initiatives that I've seen as I've been canvassing. Yes, I've seen several needs that I'm working on currently. I've gotten some good traction. I don't want to give too much away yet, but I am.
And we should say, I think we skipped something important. First of all, a lot of people are saying, which Julie is this? I'll talk to them after you've left the studio about that. But the district that you're running in, we haven't actually said that. So let's make sure that people are very clear about where you're running. So folks, this is David and Goliath district, where Julie Hunter has decided to take on none other than McKeeva Bush, who's been an MP from when Jesus was wearing slippers, way back when. So he's been there forever, and she's looking to unseat him in this upcoming election. And that is West Bay West. So
yes, West Bay West.
Yeah, so that is where she is running up against
yes.
McKeeva
and
Bush.
It is Julie Hunter, not Juliana O'Connor, because a lot of people are mixing me up with Miss Julie.
And trust me, that's not a mix-up you want. Take it from me. Anyway, Miss Julie, I know that you've got some events that are coming up. And so you want to share that. This is the main purpose of you coming on the program today, is to tell us a little bit about your event. So can you share with us exactly what you have going on for the weekend?
Yes, this is my big rally kickoff this weekend. As you know, I'm a part of the Cayman National Party, and we are having one of our first kickoffs this weekend, one in West Bay West, and it's going to be right by the boat launch. It's going to be an evening of fun, food, culture. You're going to be able to hear from our party. The whole party will be there for you to meet and greet the party, so you can get to talk to everyone. It is International Women's Day, so we're going to be celebrating women. So there have been strong women in our community, from the 40s and 50s, when women had to take the bull by the horns and just really do so much in the community as far as raising the families, when the men meant to see, taking care of the children, building the houses, using that little allotment to stretch and to make it work. Women have always played a major role in our community, and we don't ever want to forget the role that women have played. So we're gonna be concentrating a lot on women in our society, in our community, and what they have done, highlighting the role of the women, and letting people see the strong women that we are and that we can be, and the leaders that that we were meant to be. And, as you see in this election, there are a lot of women that have put themselves forward, because sometimes, when we need to get a job done, a woman can do it. A woman can multitask, and just like we can do in the home, watching the children do the homework while you're cooking and you're cleaning, you're doing everything. That's the job of a woman. God made women different from men. And so we want to recognize that women are powerful, strong, and can do so much if we're given a chance. So that's one of my messages actually this morning, because, a lot of people said to me, well, what makes you think that you can manage this district? What makes you think that you can come in and, after Mr. Bush has been our incumbent for 40 years, what makes you think that you'll do a better job? But, the reality is, I looked at that, Sandra, for the past 8 years, we have not had good representation. And I looked at that and I said, even though I wanted to retire after my 35 years in Cayman National, I looked around and and what I saw was not a pretty picture. And so I decided that, it was not time for me to retire yet. I have a lot more in me. I did get up this morning. I took my B12. I took my vitamins, ready to go. And I do that every day, and basically, I just want the public to know that I have a lot more to give. This is not just a start for me. As I said, I have been serving my community all of my entire life, and I will get into more of what I've done, the next time I'm on the show. But this would just be another platform, maybe a little wider platform for me to use and to serve and to do the things that I've done my whole life. So this will not be new by any stretch of the imagination. So when they ask me what makes you think that you can serve, I said, I've already served. I've already been serving, and I point out some of the things that I have done in the community and for the island.
All right. So tell us about the details. You said the launch event tomorrow is at the launching dock there in West Bay. What's the time?
It's 7 p.m.
Okay.
7 p.m. I want to invite everybody. We're going to have a phenomenal time. And I just want everybody to come and support.
Yes.
Hear what our party has to offer. Talk to me. We'll have a meet and greet after the function.
Yep. So it is your event
to engage, actually.
Yeah, so it's your event for West Bay West, but of course,
it's my event for West Bay West, but the whole team will be there to support.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and you'll get a chance to meet the whole team.
All right, Miss Julie Hunter, running for the beautiful district of West Bay West, and we do have a little video that we're going to play now. So, Miss Julie, we're going to thank you for coming on the program this morning. It was short but sweet. And we'll be having her on more often for you to then ask her some questions, because again, people are anxious and they do have a lot of questions ready for you already, Miss Julie. I always tell people this show is baptism by fire. You just jump in, but you'll be just fine. You've done a beautiful job today. So thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me, Sandra. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, my dear.
The grand rally kickoff of my campaign is here. Join me, Julie Hunter, and the Cayman Islands National Party for a full evening of fun, culture, food, and solutions to the many challenges we face as a country. That's this Saturday, March 8th at 7 p.m. at the West Bay Public Beach Dock. This is your chance to meet and greet the entire Cayman Islands National Party team. Together, we will take West Bay and the Cayman Islands in a new direction. Looking forward to seeing you this Saturday, March 8th at 7 p.m.
All right, folks. So Miss Julie is ready, honey child. West Bay West. She's ready to take it. All right, we've got another West Bay candidate. I told you guys today is a busy day. We're going to jump right in. And by the way, thank you so much for your clarifications, because this person said, good morning. When you said Julie, I was like, hell no. Juliana coming in CMR? I then thinking, OMG, it's not her, it's Julie Hunter. You guys make me laugh. Another person said, oh, you had me scared for a minute. Listen, we would love to have Juliana O'Connor Conley, because we got a lot of questions for her too. We'd love to have her on here, but at this time, she's going to have to pay for the pleasure of being on CMR. We're not just inviting her for nothing. So anywho, let's go to candidates who are transparent, and we're continuing going to candidates who are transparent, who are not afraid to come on the platform. Thank you, Ms. Julie, and who want to be part of our, reaching the audience, reaching the biggest audience here in the Cayman Islands. And we've got none other than Mr. Rolston Anglin in the studio. Good morning, Sir Rolston. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm good. So nice to see you.
Yes. And just please, before we start, pink shirt, no alliance to any party.
Listen to me. Just as I pulled you in, I was going to say that, I was like, oh, you're wearing pink today. My goodness. Last time people were questioning his, which, I didn't quite understand the question, because that's actually your campaign colors, independent of anybody else and what they're doing. So I love that color blue, by the way. So you rock it with pride, and you look good. I love to see men wearing, bright, vibrant colors. So good morning, Rolston, and welcome to the program again.
Thank you. And as we celebrate women, I thought it would be no better way than for me to be real manly and show up with my pink. Some men are afraid to wear pink. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But certainly I am not. But Sandra, it's good to be here. Good to continue our very strong and engaging conversations.
Yes.
Because
thank you.
the election season, we're obviously in the throes of it. And we should be about solutions, about how it is that we are going to propose to move forward our Cayman Islands.
Absolutely.
And the last day we were on, we wound up with a very good conversation. It's one that wound up creating a few new addendum points for my manifesto. But we didn't get to cover the very important points that we actually wanted to cover that day, which was to formally just take a quick snapshot through what my proposals are in education going forward. We talked a lot about my achievements as a minister, and some of that naturally tied into some of my plans. But specifically speaking to the highlights of the policy priorities that I think the country should implement for education is what I wanted to come on and talk about today. In addition, critically important point, which is inclusion. And as I've moved around, I have been really saddened, shocked, disappointed, and honestly, in a lot of instances, just hurt to hear the nightmare stories that a lot of families are going through with their children who either have some sort of special education need or additional education need. Sandra, there's an old cliche that if you really want to judge a society, right, look at how it treats its elderly and those who are most vulnerable. And we are failing, in my opinion, we are failing a lot of our children who are on the special or additional education needs spectrum. But if we wanted to start at the top, Sandra, just to give some highlights, I've talked a lot about these points, but let's make sure that we're very clear about how it is day one, what I see a new government needing to do in terms of taking decisive action to ensure that we improve the life chances of our children. Because that's what an education system should be about. Improving the life chances of our children by imparting to them knowledge and skills that they're going to take with them throughout their lives and be able to then become productive members of a society. And so we already have the formal school leaving age in our education law. But of course, I am proposing that we amend the law to include an education leaving age of 18. That, Sandra, is going to bring us in line with where the rest of the world is, well, most of the world is, and certainly where any modern society should be. People should not be exiting formal education until they're an adult. We should not be sending children out into the world to try and make it, have their being. And so that's a critically important policy priority that I think any government should take on board come May 1st. Secondly, we've heard me pound this point, but tied to that intricately tied to that is the expansion of SciFec into our national trade school, because that is then going to give all of our children, an avenue to remain in full-time education until the age of 18. So those who would have already started to go through the dual entry program at UCCI or one of the strong A-level programs at Catholic or Prep High, they've been accommodated for, right? Those children who are soaring, as it were, have been well accommodated for in our system. But what of the other children? And so not only will those who don't transition to tertiary not be left behind, they're now going to have that additional year to take up their national apprenticeship and traineeship program. And so they would then take on their next year remaining in a program that is going to be approved by SciFec. So let me be clear, not everything is going to be housed at SciFec, because a lot of people in their minds would be saying, yeah, but how are we going to accommodate all of our young people on this one campus? Let me give an example. The Superior Auto Training Program would be one of the approved programs. And so they would be offsite doing their program at that institution. But the critical thing will be their attendance would be mandatory, because we will have it enshrined in legislation that you are not out of compulsory education at that point. You're still a child. You still have to be in full-time education, but now you would be taking on your apprenticeship and traineeship program to now transition you for life, into the world of work. And so, Sandra, if you're a small business, this is a wonderful opportunity, because now government is going to be not only assisting you in locating young Caymanians and getting them into your company, but government is then funding the training of those persons. And every program, I've said this before, but it needs to be emphasized. Every program, Sandra, is going to be a program that we develop along with the private sector. Government can't just say, for mechanics, here's the program. Heavy equipment operators, here's the program. No, industry has to be engaged with us to ensure that the programs that we run are the programs that they want, so that when our young people have completed those programs, we don't then have the excuse of, oh, well, the certification they want isn't what we really want, because then that would be an absolute nightmare and a disaster. The next thing that we need to have is we have to implement an external national primary school exit examination system. But Sandra, this one is one that I think parents in particular will be excited about, because parents for too long have had a real struggle around assisting their children with the new way in which students are evaluated. That is, they're given a lot of information about how their child is performing, but they're not given a grade. Parents want to know, what level specifically is my child operating at? Where are they? And that's how parents typically want to and are able to assist their children much more at home. And so, tagged on to that, we need to know how our children are discreetly performing as they exit primary schools. When I went through the system, we used to have something called the NAT, the National Achievement Test. And so anyone that's 50-ish or older will remember that examination, and that was how we all knew exactly where we were and how we were performing. And very importantly, that was also something that a lot of principals and teacher bodies enjoyed, the whole quote-unquote competition, because every school wanted to have the highest number of students in the top 15 of the National Achievement Test. And of course, that helped to drive performance, Sandra. When you have that sort of system, it drives performance because teachers are now incentivized, principals are incentivized. Principals always wanted to have that top child. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to go back to that sort of league table sort of approach, but we have to have that sort of system, in my opinion, back in place to ensure we know exactly how our children are performing as they exit primary and transition to secondary education. People have heard me talk about the implementation of summer school for a portion of the summer, so that any of our children who are performing below expectations can be given that opportunity to catch up. Sandra, what we have done for decades in this country is have children simply pass through the system. Teachers knew they were below standard, but what happened was there was just social promotion. So you just went along with your age group. There was no other opportunity for interventions. And so I think having a form of summer school is a key intervention that we can put in place to assist our children to truly be up to standard and where they need to be and catch up for those children who may have fallen behind a bit. And I think parents, again, I think would be welcoming of this, because it will give their children the best opportunity for success.
All right, let me get you to. Yes, let me get you to take a little breath there, because you got so much stuff coming at us. We do have some questions and comments here as well. And we want to talk about what your vision is for diversity, equity, and inclusion, something that we know is very, very important. So good morning, Miss Alba. Marshall is here. Morning to Mellow Fellow. Miss Brenda says, thanks for wearing the pink in honor of women's suffrage, and happy Women's Day to all women tomorrow, March the 8th. As she was saying, to please include and enforce an apprenticeship program, which is something he's already mentioned. Shaka Zulu says, finally, someone talking sense regarding Cayman education for young high school graduates. Miss Tessa Solomon, good morning, Tessa, says, great news at Rolston. And Ms. Brenda says, we also need to make civics part of the curriculum.
Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that is also a policy priority. So if anyone who've read the manifesto, they will see I have a point called develop a reception through year 12 character education curriculum. That is where civics would be taught, because we need to be talking about all of how we develop, help to develop our children. And so civics is a key component, but there's a lot of other components that go along with what is a strong character education curriculum. And in my vision, we would work with teachers and principals, because one of the things that we know is that there's a limited number of days and there's a limited number of days, contact hours for teachers and students. So in my mind, one of the things that we would do is certainly to start off each day, this is where we would interject this in the curriculum and interweave it throughout different subjects like social studies, etc. So we will ensure that we give the curriculum to all teachers and principals, and then we would implement it through various strategies based on the actual subjects that the children have to undertake in any event.
All right, very, very good. So we do have some questions and comments here that are coming in on the WhatsApp. So let's go ahead and take some of those as well. Give me 1 second here. Let me just pull those in. So thank you guys so much. Miss Brenda says common entrance exam. Daniela says that WORC and Inspire Cayman, have been working, but to get them to work together collaboratively would be beneficial. Let me just pull up these questions as well. So thank you guys so much. And Rolston, I'm so happy that when you come in here, you really just focus on the issues. One of the questions that people always have, they're like, listen, he's got obviously a lot of experience as a minister. What happens if, we don't know how it's going to play out with all these people running. We've got more independents running than anybody else once again. So what happens if you have to join a government that says to you, you can't have education? Not that you have to join a government, but you're in talks with a government that says you can't have education. What else are you prepared to take on?
That's a great question, Sandra. Obviously, from a profession standpoint, my background is obviously in finance. I'm a qualified accountant. So finance would be an area that a lot of people have looked on and said, is that an area that we'd be interested in? Sandra, I've said this publicly and I've said it on the show and I'll say it again. The people of the country have to elect 19 people. It's during that period of putting together the next government that I am going to look on and see how I best fit in to ensure we can create and put the strongest possible government together. What I've also said is that I'm not going to be part of any loosey-goosey sort of government that doesn't come back to the public with policy priorities in the critical areas that Caymanians need addressed. And so to me, if you're going to put together a government come April 30th and not say in education, here's our top 10 priorities. Healthcare, here's our top 10 priorities. I mean, it could be more than 10, but certainly we need to come to the country, because you're quite right. The odds of any one group getting 10, I think everyone in the country have agreed, is practically, I would say, as close to 0% as there can be politically. And so we do know there's going to be some form of coalition that needs to take place. But I can promise the public that one thing, these very strong and important points for our children, wherever I was to be in a government, are not going to get lost in the shuffle. And these are the policy priorities that I am going to fight for, whether, if elected, whether I am the Minister for Education or not. Because for too long, we have operated this country as 8 governments, 8 ministries, 8 governments. Government, you need to have one government for the Cayman Islands. And that government needs to be hemmed up and an agreement on its policy priorities so that it can be ultra focused on delivering on those promises to the Caymanians people.
Okay.
Because if we don't do that, then we're just going to be all over the place and we'll get nothing done and be dysfunctional.
Yep. All right. One question says, one commenter says, sound good. It will also motivate the children to work harder. Implementing summer school would be a game changer, as there's a real brain drain during the summer. All right, let's look at some other questions. This person says that system he speaks of pushes for memorization, not learning. We have seen the need for critical thinking and analytical writing. The best systems in the world, Finland, for example, have moved beyond the traditional system and looked at learners' individual needs. We don't need to go backwards. Also, as an FYI, colors have no gender. There was a time when pink was the preferred color for boys because blue was believed to be dainty. So let's move beyond the gender confirming mentality.
Well, take that, Rolly.
Yes, take that, all okay, man.
Yeah. So let's cover that first one first, Sandra. Clearly, the author of that probably has not followed me in terms of my political journey. They should be happy to know that the country I chose to visit and where 90% of my policy ideas come from is Finland. We spent a week in Finland going through their entire education system. We were hosted by the Ministry and Department of Education in Finland. And the author's quite right. Because I said we're having an exit exam does not mean that the focus is going to be rote memorization. The point I'm making is, for too long, children going to high school, you keep hearing the excuse at high school that, we've inherited X% of children who are underperforming. Well, I want to understand what underperforming really means. And I do believe, just like at high school, our system is predicated on our external exams. I think at those two points, I don't think we're going to be harming anything to ensure that we're actually testing and ensuring we clearly understand exactly where every child is operating at. And that clarity, I think, is something that parents want. The other thing that we have to do with reporting cards and reporting sessions is that we do need to assist parents more, because parents have been crying out for this. A lot of parents, whilst they appreciate the very detailed analytical explanation of where their children is operating at, they still want to get a little more clarity so that they can help their children. Remember, to truly have our children at the center of our education system, we have to also be supporting our parents. We got to be supporting our parents so that they can really engage with the system and engage with their children and support their children and support and in supporting their children, that gives every child in Cayman the best possible opportunity for maximizing their life chances.
Mm-hmm. All right, very good. We got some tough questions coming in here, and thank you guys so much for these amazing questions this morning. This person has a lot to say. They said, okay, here's some questions from Rolston, and they wanted to ask these of Miss Julie. So when she comes back, we will present her with these questions as well. Number one, policy differentiation. Yes. West Bay North voters have a diverse selection of candidates in this election. What specific policies or initiatives do you propose that set you apart from your opponents? And how do these address the unique needs of this constituency?
So I want, Sandra, this is a point. This is a point that we need to ensure that we truly, truly drill down on. So West Bay North, for example, is separated all along Bosun Bay Road.
Mm-hmm.
As one example, what is the difference between one side of Bosun Bay Road and the other side? Literally, it's about a 22-foot road. What is the difference between the house on one side that's West Bay North and the houses on the right side that's West Bay West? And then when you get up to Finch Drive, what's the difference? When I go up Birch Tree Hill, and on one side is West Bay Central, and one side is West Bay North, what is the difference? And that is one of the real, in my opinion, that is one of the real weaknesses in very small communities where we have pretty much a homogeneous society. The fact of the matter is, what happens with any ministry as it relates to West Bay children or East End children, we're all facing the same challenges. Now, as far as the difference, I would welcome the person to go to Rolston for wbn.ky, download my manifesto, and you will see a very, very clearly articulated policy positions on a wide range of topics that our country faces. There is also a constituency section, and so I do have some very specific points as it relates to Barkers. A lot of West Bayers in particular, Barkers is in West Bay, and so we visited a lot more, and a lot of West Bayers and Caymanians who visit that area, and tourist guests, do see it as, quote unquote, I like to call it a last frontier, a last opportunity for us to keep a certain area distinctly Caymanian. And you'll see in the manifesto that one of the things that I am proposing is that government go and acquire as much lands in the Barkers area as possible to truly develop the concept of the Barkers National Park. Because government acquired one piece of property somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago, and declared the intent. And so we have not truly built out that intent. And so we have 40+ million in the National Conservation Fund. And I think conserving lands is a key part of conservation. And so I think that is one key policy that the government needs to fulfill. We also need to acquire more lands in the central mangrove wetlands. We don't own any land on Barkers Beach itself, so we need to acquire lands there. Those are very unique because geographically they happen to reside in West Bay North. But what policy priorities are laid out in immigration, education, healthcare, or families? Those impacts are impacts across our Cayman Islands and not just West Bay North. But the other point.
Let's move on to the next. They've got quite a few questions, so maybe if we could move on, and we'll come back to these in greater detail. But one of the things you mentioned is that your manifesto, so let's remind people, is readily available online. So maybe that's one of the things that's probably distinguishing you from the other candidates. I've not heard any of them say that their manifesto is available anywhere. So remind people where they can go and actually look at your policy position on all of these different issues.
Right. So it's Rolston for FOR West Bay North.ky. So Rolston for WBN.ky. And the other thing that is also available is the opportunity for people to comment. Because I looked at a manifesto as something that needs to be a live, living document that truly reflects the wishes of Caymanians. I have for anyone who gets the printed copy, there's a Q code at the very back that you can scan with your phone and then give me feedback. And I must say that I've received some wonderful feedback so far as it relates to persons who have engaged and read the manifesto. And so that again has been quite good. And that's a part of the democratic process, right? There can't be this one-way street of candidates to potential voters. There must be the opportunity for voters to give candidates feedback as well.
Wonderful. Let me just go on to the second one. So the second one says past controversies. Your political career has faced challenges, including allegations of interference in procurement process during your tenure as Minister of Education and convictions related to alcohol-related offenses. How have these experiences shaped your approach to leadership? And what assurances can you provide to constituents regarding your commitments to ethical governance?
Well, first of all, that person clearly didn't see my appearance at the Public Accounts Committee. I am not going to ever shy away from the fact that I believe that there was a corrupt auditor in the audit office. And he certainly played a lot of politics in his time there. And so I prepared a very detailed statement, and I went before the Public Accounts Committee. I read my statement to the Public Accounts Committee. The audit office had no questions for me. The committee had no questions for me, nor did the Minister of Finance have any questions for me. I didn't interfere with anything. What happened was very simple. A lot of people will have forgotten, and a lot of younger people may not have even been alive. Tom Jones International was granted and awarded the contract to build 2 schools simultaneously in this country, Clifton Hunter High School and the John Gray High School. And I'm going to repeat that, Tom Jones International. Now, the reason I repeat it is because the company is no longer around. Now, there's a huge surprise. Those projects were tendered and awarded before I took over the ministry. We were $38 million out of the ground at Clifton Hunter. And so the policy position that we took at the time was that despite the fact that we did not agree with the open space learning system that was being proposed, we thought it was not in tune with our culture, our community, our children, and would be extremely disruptive. The fact of the matter was $38 million of government monies, public monies, had already been spent. And so I took it back to my caucus with the recommendation we had to continue. It was no way in the world that I was going to be so financially reckless, especially at a time where the government coffers were very, very shaky. People will have forgotten this as well. We had to go to the UK to get our budgets approved back then because we were not in compliance with our own public management and finance law. And so we continued and built that school. It just so happened that Tom Jones International eventually walked off the jobs, and we then, as government, had to defend our position, and government wound up not being found. It didn't even make it to court because they threatened to sue government, etc. We hired an very experienced construction QC out of the UK who saw that the government, the ministry, had taken all the right actions right throughout the entire process. There was no interference by me as minister that was initially charged by the audit office. What was very, very clearly laid out in all the documentation was that everything that the ministry did and that I did as minister was completely above board. And we, in my opinion, rescued the Cayman Islands from a financial disaster that was looming when it came to those schools projects. See, a lot of people forget, Sandra. See, 16 years is a long time, and a long time for a lot of people. I remember it because I lived through it. I was the one that had to live through taking up a ministry where a huge percentage of my time was taken with having to deal with those projects, because a lot of policy positions and decisions had to be taken at every step of the way to ensure that we didn't compromise the Cayman Islands government position and then have either the general contractor or any of the mean subcontractors be able to successfully sue the country for wrongful termination. So everything we did was done through cabinet papers, and clearly documented every step of the way. Sandra, we've talked about Rolston Anglin as a person on many times on this show, and my life, I have never hid or ran away from any of my past mistakes. Those are mistakes that I've been truly sorry for. Those are mistakes that I know would have been very much an embarrassment for myself, people who've supported me, but most importantly, my children and my family. And so I have moved on as a human being. I am where I am now, and I am in a position now to be able to offer myself back for service in this country. The vast majority of West Bay period, but in particular West Bay North, see and know who Rolston Anglin is. And as I've moved around, Sandra, over this campaign, people see that Rolston is back. And I am here now to try and help us as Caymanian people. But I thank the author for the question, but I'm not going to be dragged back into my past. I am where I am, and we're the 7th of March, 2025, and I'm proud for where I am. I'm stronger. I'm a stronger person for having made mistakes. You skin your knee, you buck your toe, you bump your head, you learn from those lessons. And I thank God for all of my life experiences, because it's made me the better version, or the very best version of myself.
All right. Let me ask you a quick question. There's some people who've been critical of you because of your friends. And so this is a very, very interesting question. But one query that I keep getting from some individuals is, Sandy, that guy, Philip Hides, that you had mentioned on your show, the kind of rogue contractor, that's Rolston's best friend.
Sandra, at the end of the day, everyone in life has different people that they've grown up around and been around. And I'm not going to apologize for anyone that I've grown up and been around in West Bay. We have a campaign. We have a country to try and rescue. Those are completely irrelevant to the points of education, reform, immigration reform, and all of the very important things that we have to be concentrating on. And we're on today to talk about special education needs, additional education needs, and how we're going to help those families. And those families aren't going to be helped by us being distracted by people who want to just distract, always be detractors and distract. Here's the issue. The issue is early assessment and staged inclusion for special education needs is failing our children. And so what am I proposing to do about it? We have to fund. We have to up our funding on the early intervention program. I'm hearing now of families who are on wait lists. Do we understand how critically important it is for a child who's 2-3 years old to be assessed? That delaying an assessment for 6 months completely compromises the ability for that child to then transition, because in those early years are the most critical formative years. If we don't ensure that we fund the IEP program and ensure that those professionals get the assistance that they need to assist families, all we're doing is continuing to set more and more Caymanian children up for failure. Because when they don't get assessed early enough, they start out a race behind, and they already have certain challenges that they have to overcome. So it's it's a double whammy, Sandra. It's a double whammy. A child who has special or additional education needs already has certain challenges that place them at a disadvantage. To then not assess them in a timely manner exasperates that situation. And so what I can promise parents in this country is that when elected on April 30th, I am going to advocate strongly that the next round of education dollars spent has got to be on special and additional education needs children at the very earliest stages of our early childhood care and education system, and at the other end of the spectrum on technical and vocational training. Because if you look at our system, the children who are doing well are doing well. They move through the system. They either go on to a US university, a Canadian or a UK university, and they then get full benefit of the system. But what of the rest of the children? What of children who have additional and special education needs? What of children who need to enter the trades, who are now at present not having access to a wide range of government-funded technical and vocational opportunities? Critically important to us for our future. Of course, you'll see in the manifesto that I'm also proposing that every Caymanian scholarship recipient who does not have a private sector, a private company that they're engaged with, be added back to what I'm calling national service. Because what we have done is we've hired a growing number of non-Caymanians into the civil service. Yet our children, a growing number of our children can't get hired in the civil service and are choosing to remain overseas. We cannot afford a brain drain in such a small community. I repeat that, Sandra. We cannot afford a brain drain in such a small community. And so we have to ensure that transition from university to the world of work is an area that we focus on. And you'll see in the manifesto that I have a strategy that has to be implemented in my mind immediately to curb this growing and worrying trend of a number of Caymanians who are not coming back home simply because they can't get a job in Cayman, and in a large number of instances are not even being successful in getting interviews with the Cayman Islands government.
All right. Well, Rolston's time is up, folks. We are pushing forward. Rolston, there are a lot of questions, obviously, that are coming through to you. So I'm letting people know you'll be back here next week, Friday. One person has a very, very simple question I think you can answer, hopefully very quickly. He said, the person said, please ask if he would support parallel laws where the civil service would have a mandatory rollover.
And so that's in the manifesto. That's my proposal that has to take place. The short answer is yes, it has to happen immediately.
All right. Ms. Donna says, holding you to it, Rolly, especially with their special needs children, the system has and still is a failure. It needs to be fixed. So thank you so much. Magdalene says he's the man for education. Just Sarah says, well said, Rolston, regarding education. Chad has a lot of criticisms here for you, but unfortunately, Chad, you came in a bit late in the discussion. So maybe next week, if you come in the show earlier, we can jump to some of those queries and questions. One was about the status grants. One was about the NRA deal. One was about leasehold property in the Ritz-Carlton. One was about value for money. One was about DART, and it goes on and on and on. So lots of questions there. Miss Juanita, good morning. She wants to know about Sunrise Adult Training Center. She said, well, will you be doing something about that? Because it's a hot mess and they're trying to get rid of the principal there, which, I mean, I don't know anything about, but that would be part of obviously looking at the inclusion services and programs that are available on island.
Absolutely. Okay. So Sandra, before I get off air, I do want to invite the residents of West Bay North and West Bay and generally anyone who wants to come out to 120 Andreessen Road. It's the residents of Carlton and Pearl MacDoom. That's tomorrow evening at 6:30. That's my next area meeting. 120 Andreessen Road. The residents of Carlton and Pearl MacDoom. They're a very well-known couple in the community. So come on out at 6:30 tomorrow evening and hear a lot more about the manifesto. But more importantly, the majority of the meeting is dedicated to you, the residents to ask me any question you want publicly. And then if you don't want to ask it publicly, I'm available there for any one-on-one conversations. And Sandra, you've been to a couple of the area meetings, and you can attest to the fact that people have asked a lot of great questions, and it's a great opportunity for me to engage in that way, not in that public meeting forum where I'm on a platform basically spouting out messaging, but getting that interaction and that one-on-one. 120 Andresen Road, the residents of Carlton and Pearl McDo.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Rolston. We'll be back with him next week, so get your questions ready. And this person who sent those questions, I know Magdalene said, I hope that all of those will be asked of all the candidates. And I can assure you that that person who is a civil servant is sitting back asking the questions. They said they can't call in and ask the questions. Mr. Franz Manderson said, no, of course you can ask questions to candidates. They just can't dominate political meetings. So there is a difference in the mind of the civil service. So they have sent out their general guidance, which we will have a quick look at. But you're free to ask questions. Of course, you know, I allow you guys to come through me anonymously and ask your questions and present your comments. That's never a problem. And we got a lot for you, Rolston. We can't get to all of this today. I mean, you know, yeah, we'll get there. But thank you so much for joining us on the program.
And Sandra, just before I leave, I do want to send out deepest condolences to a number of families in West Bay. The families of Miss Millie Banker, Miss Alma Jackson, and Miss Vivienne Glidden, Mr. Kent Ebanks, all senior citizens who've passed away recently in the district. Wow. So they're in our thoughts and prayers. All
right. Your cousin Dewey Powery says good morning and good news. All right. Thank you so much, Rolston. Really
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too. All right, so this is the time, folks, to get your questions asked and answered. At least I can only promise they'll be asked. I can't promise the answered part, but we'll put it to the candidates for sure. And hopefully they will answer them. Really, really appreciate it. Lots and lots of questions coming in for Rolston. This person says, great segment with Rolston, composed statesman. Other people asking lots of questions that I don't know a whole lot about. This person says, you let him move on like that? His history and alliances to that contractor, Gillard and Mac. I don't know who Gillard is supposed to be. He's already talked about Mac. And, you know, at some point I do agree with Rolston. You know, someone brought up his DUI, which he's addressed multiple times on the show. There's only so many times you can address something. You know, let me be clear. There's no such thing as a perfect candidate. None of these candidates are perfect. Some of them less so than others. Some of them have made some epic mistakes in their political and their life. And he said it has put him in the position where he is today, being a much better and the best version of himself. You know, on the one hand, you have to accept him at face value until he shows you otherwise, right? But do we keep hounding on, oh, well, you did this, right? You were involved in the status grants. He's also likewise addressed that. Do we continue in that loop where we're asking him to address the same things over and over again? Or do we now focus on, right, you're back again. What is your vision for this country, and where do you see, with your help putting together a government potentially, where do you see you playing a critical role? So, you know, I don't know how many different ways a person can answer a question to your satisfaction. Maybe that's just it. It's never going to be to everybody's satisfaction. And so, you know, I feel like he's addressed those things significantly, especially about his personal mistakes already, and keep asking it over and over again does not get us any further ahead. Either he's addressed it sufficiently to your satisfaction or not. And if he hasn't, then you've got two other options in the district of West Bay North that certainly you can vote for, that mean you must be happy with. So we all have to go to the polls and we have to decide, because again, there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. There will be people who have done things in the past that has demonstrated, you know, questionable character in their personal lives. Professionally, they might have it more together. They might be coming with experience, and you have got to decide what is important to you. And quite frankly, you're going to also have to juggle what's most important. You know, do you want someone who's experienced, who has done this, 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 and this, and this, or you want a newcomer with no experience just because you haven't heard anything about their messy lives yet? And I can assure you there are a lot of people in this community who have very messy lives. It's just that you've never heard about it because they weren't yet an elected official. And, you know, once they become one, then you'll start to hear some of those things as well. And he's already answered the question somebody else is asking about joining the PPM. He's answered those questions already. So I think we've really got to get to the point where, we start to focus on some of the issues. Right. So Brenda says, thank you, Rolston. Kent Ebanks is my uncle. So sorry to hear that, Miss Brenda. And let me do a big condolence message also to Paul Tibbetts over at Cayman Airways. His mom passed away this week as well. So I wanted to extend our condolences to his family. I know that just last year they lost their dad. So a very, very difficult time for the Tibbetts family, Cayman Brac, and obviously Grand Cayman. Lucky Body says, I'm surprised that no MP or election candidate has addressed the communication gap between public and private school students. When you say communication gap, maybe I need some clarification on exactly what that means. Magdalene says, we have so many issues. At least he has a vision and a plan. So many don't have a plan, an answer, and all the skeletons in their closets, and let's be very clear. A lot of people have skeletons of varying sizes, shapes, and the whole 9 yards. But again, it's not about looking for perfection in people. It's about trying to find, of the available options that you have, trying to find the best person for the job. Now, you notice that I would have said that he only has 2 other opponents, because there's something you guys will get a little exclusive here on this morning. I love to give you guys nuggets, right, of information. So one of the candidates in West Bay North, maybe I'll wait till the elections office, depending on how long they take, decides to come out with this. But one of the candidates is, on the face of it, ineligible. And I'm pretty sure, not just the face of it, he is going to be ineligible for running for public office because of a previous conviction. Now, listen, you guys show up to class all the time. Auntie Sandy's here to educate you. And I've had this discussion numerous times. And somehow either you're not listening, you're not understanding, or it doesn't really sink in. I'm not really sure which one. But let me repeat it for you. If you have a conviction for a dishonesty offense, and it doesn't matter what the outcome of that conviction was. So it doesn't matter if you paid a fine. It doesn't matter if it was a suspended sentence. It doesn't matter if you were a teenager. Now your criminal record is spent. It does not matter, right? Once you have been convicted of a dishonesty offense, you are barred from running for public office your entire life. So remember when you were 17 years old and you went and stole a candy bar from the local grocery store, and the police came and arrested you and charged you, and you were convicted and you made to pay 50 cents for the candy bar? That's a ridiculous example. But I made it ridiculous because it doesn't matter. If that's what happened, you cannot run for public office at the age of 25, 55, 65, 95, or 105. Never, ever, ever. It is a bar for life. And the dishonesty convictions run the gamut into a number of different areas: theft, obtaining property by deception, fraud. All those things are dishonesty offenses, okay? So let me clarify it. Once again, if you have that anywhere, and you've got to think about, have I ever been to court? Was I convicted? What was I convicted for? Right? It's important, because then the person said to me, I was discussing it with them a few days ago, and they said, oh, but Miss Sandy, we got the Minister of Tourism. He went to jail. And I said, yeah, but he didn't go to jail for dishonesty. It was drug offenses. I'm not saying that's great or whatever, but it was not dishonesty. The law is very, very specific. And he didn't serve more than 12 months. Now, had he gone to jail for more than 12 months for the drug offense, he likewise would not be eligible to run. All right, folks, let's keep it moving and jot that down in your little notebook so that you can pay attention. Now we've got the TCCP joining us, Mr. Wayne Panton, who is the current MP for Newlands, and he is seeking re-election. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good, Sandra. Good morning, and good morning to everybody who is watching, listening, all of your wonderful audience in Cayman and all over the world. Just one point of clarity.
Yes.
Parliament has now been officially dissolved.
Right.
I am no longer an MP. I am a candidate.
That's right. As of Monday.
Constituency of Newlands.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. As of March the 1st. It was dissolved. That's correct.
Correct.
And as I was saying it, I was like, no, you're going to have to fix that. But I'm glad that you did. Of course, lawyer, Mr. Panton, making sure that he gets things.
That's why you see my
correct.
name. The name of my on my screen is no longer MP. It just says Wayne Panton Newlands.
Yes, candidate for Newlands. All right, beautiful district. I used to live in Newlands for many, many years. It's where I had my
Yes,
first
and we miss you.
home. Yes, sometimes I drive through and I miss the old neighborhood. I'm like, oh. And then I looked at, then I was looking at the neighbors and how they're keeping their place. I was like, thank God I moved. Anyway, a beautiful area for sure, and lots of fond memories there in Newlands. We also have Miss Emily DuCou, affectionately known as M, joining us as well. Good morning, Emily. How are you?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sandy, and good morning, Cayman. How are you today?
Yeah, we're all very, very good. I see you guys have on your TCCP shirts, looking good, looking sharp.
Thank you.
Emily, we're going to dive in with you today because I feel like we haven't really had much of an opportunity. You have come on the program, but a lot of people have questions for you. They want to know a little bit more about you and sort of, you're running in, remind me now, it is Georgetown
East.
Yes. And we do have the final list of all of the districts and candidates, folks. We're going to be posting that up, as well as a whole slew of poll questions today. So keep an eye out on the CMR pages for that. But Emily, thank you so much again for joining us. And you are a candidate for Georgetown East. This is actually your second time running in a general election. You ran last time as well. Tell us why you think, as people are looking at the Georgetown East candidates and they're contemplating who they're going to vote for, why should you stand out in the minds of the voters?
That's a great question. Thank you. And thank you once again for having myself and my colleague Wayne on. I am honored to be able to run again for the constituency of Georgetown East. You know, it's such a friendly, vibrant, diverse constituency that has admittedly, a few areas that need a little bit more attention. And as a young person who, is painfully aware of a lot of the things that some of the residents of many of the residents of Georgetown East face, I feel like I'm very well poised to deliver solutions for that community. I'm very well versed in areas that people are that people hold near and dear to their hearts. The environment, education, our young people, as well as generally seeing that solutions are delivered and policies are implemented and strengthened and enforced that help people's quality of life improve, that we deliver more equitable solutions for people and put our culture first. So these are all areas that I'm very passionate about. I've got experience in these areas, working with young people, working in environmental organizations. And I have also spent, a lot of my childhood being educated in Georgetown East at CCC. I've lived in Georgetown East. I know the area. I know a lot of its wonderful, friendly residents. And so it's an honor to be continuing this journey in 2025, like I started in 2021 to, like I said, the good people of Georgetown East and the Water Cayman Islands.
All right, let's talk a bit then about your qualifications. Right now, I know we'll do a candidate feature on you, so we'll get a bit more into like who Emily is and where you're coming from, that sort of thing. But tell us about what you actually bring to the table from a professional perspective.
Sure. So I spent about 10 years in the financial services industry and legal sector. Towards the end of my corporate career, I felt deeply in my heart that I needed to align my profession more with my values of cultural preservation and environmental conservation, and seeing how I can use my forces for good, my powers for good, on a local level and get more involved with the community. And so I ended up getting a total resource use and deficiency advisor qualification, actually. And that's a very wordy mouthful. So the acronym for that is TRUE, TRUE. And essentially that helps me to guide businesses, organizations, and individuals to transitioning to more resource-efficient lifestyles and operations. TRUE has principles that guide decision-making, and it's those principles that I'm very keen to see be applied to national policy so that we're respecting and stewarding our resources, managing them appropriately, not just from the perspective of our trees, our seas, but also our people, making sure that they're an invested in resource who can, feed up and contribute to society in a meaningful, efficient way, so that long term our country is fiscally more responsible with its spending. So money and capital is a resource as well that needs to be spent more efficiently. Spending money so that you spend less now, you invest in a proactive way is a principle of TRU. And so it's that qualification combined with my experience in the financial services industry and legal sector, as well as just generally being a citizen who's had their eyes open to seeing what could be and seeing how we can bridge the gaps where, people bring their professional experience and their skills and their vision for the country to political office, and meshing those so that we can move forward and achieve what we really need to as a country.
Very good.
Yes.
Wayne, you're sitting here listening to this young lady, and I know that the TCCP has worked hard to be inclusive of having women in particular. Tomorrow is International Women's Day. So you guys have worked hard in making sure that you're finding qualified women to be part of your platform. So how proud do you feel this morning to have a young lady, articulate her ideas and thoughts here on this show?
Very, very proud of Emily. Very proud of all of the strong women that we have in the Caymanian Community Party. I think there's no doubt that we have, I haven't looked at across the board at the others recently, but we certainly have a very gender balanced party. And I'm particularly proud of that. I'm proud of these ladies. I think it's so appropriate that we are going to be having our party launch tomorrow evening at Pedro St. James on the very day in which we celebrate International Women's accomplishments. So very, very proud of that. And I couldn't be happier to hear you speak and deliver, your perspectives on Georgetown East as you have done this morning. So congratulations. And the other aspect of Emily is that she's a young Caymanian, and it is critically important for us to ensure that we have the voices of young Caymanians involved in all the discussions that we have. Young people have much more invested in the future in this country than those of us who are older, and it is critical that they play their part, that their voices are heard, because they're going to be living that future. Many of us are not. Unfortunately, life is one of these things. Nobody's ever figured out how to get out of it alive. So, so it's critically important that we have young people, and we're going to have some interesting and exciting conversations about that particular aspect in just a little bit. But yes, tomorrow evening, starting at 5 p.m. Going until about 9 p.m., we have the official Caymanian Community Party launch at Pedro St. James, the birthplace of democracy in the Cayman Islands, as it is labeled. So it is a very family-friendly event. It is focused on community. There's no hard sell politically going on. We are going to be trying to make connections between ourselves and those that are attending, and just having real, genuine, honest, sincere conversations about Cayman's future. So I am particularly happy to be able to talk about that this morning and have Em join with me. I just think it's going to be a really amazing evening. As I said, very family focused. Live local music. We have heat. We have the wonderful Vashti Bodden, who I am so proud of as well. So I'll let Em talk a bit about some of the other things. I don't want to hog the mic at this time, but just really, really proud to be able to be here with her this morning to talk about this.
All right, fantastic. We do have some questions from our listeners, and we're going to let them lead the charge with these queries this morning. So this person trying to ask questions of all the candidates. I love this they're looking specifically at thinking about each individual candidate. So let's see how we can get through these. Emily, the first one is addressing misinformation. It says, during your 2021 campaign, a counterfeit manifesto misrepresenting your platform was circulated, prompting you to involve law enforcement. How do you plan to combat misinformation in future campaigns, and what strategies will you employ to ensure that voters receive accurate information about your policies?
Yeah, that was a really difficult time and issue to wade through about 48 hours before actual election day in 2021. It certainly knocked a lot of wind out of my sails to get a call from a voter saying that they had found this fake manifesto on their door, and it was potentially going to influence how they voted for me because it didn't speak to who I was and what I was about. It was quite terrible. Yes.
I hadn't even heard about this, by the way. So wow.
Yep. No, it was making promises that I had never spoken publicly about. And it was, if memory serves me, about 8 pages double-sided.
Whereas, oh my God.
Yep. It was a lot. So I did involve law enforcement. As soon as I got the call, within hours, I was at the police station in Georgetown, relating this concern of mine that if one person called and said they potentially might not vote for me based on this document that was taped to their door, how else could this influence other constituents' decision a few days later? So it was handled by the police in the best way that they could. It was something that taught me a lot of lessons in terms of making sure that, from a campaign publicity standpoint, or maybe a marketing standpoint, I should say, making sure that my branding is strong. The person who did bring it to my attention very graciously said, look, I've been following you for quite a while, and this just does not look like you. So I wanted to give you the courtesy of giving you a call to see. And I'm very grateful for that person who did call. And, they, like I said, very graciously went into their community group chats, and they flagged it with their neighbors. And they said, this is not M's. Please take this down and bin it pretty much immediately. But it did teach me that, going forward in future elections, it's really, really important to get your message out so that people know who you are, what you stand for. In this case, with being part of the Caymanian Community Party, we have a very robust branding, view and vision. And so it's going to be, I think, about also making sure that when I'm going door to door, I'm leaving printed materials on people's door. People are aware of that, whether it's a social media perspective or that kind of thing. So people aren't caught off guard like they were. And, it was, it was a learning lesson for sure.
Yeah. Wow.
And then
yes.
And so that they could, share that news with the public. But absolutely. About 48 hours before the last election.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had no idea, but I must say to Wayne, I'm sure you're very, very cognizant of this, that unfortunately, it is, we say silly season, but that means that people will be coming under attack for all sorts of things. People dredging up stories that they heard about you, or making up stories sometimes, which is pretty wild as well. But how do you address, and I know, obviously as a senior in the party, part of your role is to mentor and guide the younger candidates such as Emily. What advice do you give younger candidates about, misinformation? Sometimes it's not even misinformation. It might have been a mistake that they made, or a poor decision that they made 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago, whatever, that tends to follow you in small communities, because, we all like the sauce and we want to have something to talk about. What do you say to candidates when a person decides to throw their hat in the ring? What's sort of your best guided advice on how to deal with those types of things?
Well, I mean, I think that the focus has to be on moving forward and what your proposals are, what the party's proposals are, what kind of policy positions we're going to advocate, what solutions we're going to promote. People may have made mistakes in the past, minor mistakes, and or may have said something that someone wants to make an issue of. The truth is, a lot of that is no longer important. It's about what the person is like today and what they're going to advocate today. Now, am I saying that in the broad context that transgressions in the past don't matter and all that? No, I'm not saying that. And what we're saying is minor things that people that don't have any legal consequences and whatnot. People just can't just continue to to hold those against someone who is representing positions today and interests today, because our young people really want solutions. Our older people want solutions, and God knows we have many challenges. As much as we have an incredible country to live in that we get to call home, we will have those challenges. We do have those challenges, and we know what they are. We've identified many of them. We've been talking to so many of our people, and we're outlining solutions, and we will have that all set out in our manifesto. So it's a time to focus on what matters, what's important, and not necessarily get distracted by some minor things that people want to throw at you. There are times when certain issues are more important to others, but it's a question of what is the overall message and what solutions are you bringing, not whether you stubbed your toe in the past and somebody got upset about it.
All right, we do have a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Miss Tams. How are you today?
Morning, not bad. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Ween. Good morning, Miss Amber.
Good morning.
What I was saying, the main issue the voters on the ground have in the Cayman Islands is the housing mortgage situation. I was saying I don't have all the solutions. I was saying that if whichever government get back in power, we go to the bank, we get a mortgage. The contractor who get the mortgage, who have to build a house because the bank is an approved contractor. What I'm saying is that we go back to the hardware, we do a rebate. We're like saying that the government cut a deal with the hardware. So every Caymanian that get a mortgage, so they cut a deal with A.L. Thompson, Cox Lumber, and say that I don't know, I don't have the solution, but let's try to give an example. Like say that RT, they what we're dealing with now. Every Caymanian that the contractor come that building house of Caymanian, you bring the material in for them for no cost. We gonna cover the shipping. We gonna cover. You don't pay no duties. Bring the material in for them. We give you back a rebate. We give back a rebate and say like, you don't pay for no permits for all your workers. You don't give you back a rebate for your life. Some kind of deal. I don't know. The same. The only way costs can be come back to us as locals. We should give back their suppliers a deal. The government.
So
I don't know.
Let me try to understand what you're saying. So you think the companies who provide materials, they should be getting a deal that you think is going to be passed on to you?
So how would we get cost saving if we don't give the man that's selling the material a deal?
I don't think that you need to worry. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say to you, I don't think you need to worry about their bottom line. They have figured out a business model that makes them profitable, right? There are ways for you as a homeowner to maybe try to save and be more efficient. Let's allow the candidates to answer the question. But
Miss Sandra, listen to what I think this is. I want you to listen carefully. So the only way every kid wanted to own a home if there be some kind of rebate come back to us. You can't think of always say these are property in the business to make money. If the government don't give them no incentive, they can't give us back the people that build the kid money that build no incentive. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying to them, here example. say the government, all right, you see the government homes, the government building, they're not supposed to, they're supposed to pay raw costs. The government ain't the business to bring in material in. But when they were building the houses, North Side and West Bay, not the National Housing Trust. First thing, the first cardinal rule, the government's supposed to rent to all the hardwares and say, hey, we building the government home for Caymanians. They're not supposed to pay no cost. They're supposed to pay costs.
I'm pretty sure.
So what I'm trying to tell you, Mr. Alti would say to you, I ain't the business to make money. I said, yes, Mr. Alti, here we going to do for you. How much permits you pay in immigration? He say, you got 100 permits. Mr. Alti, we're going to waive that for you this year. And a matter of fact,
no. Hold on. Caller, just a second, right? I think you're mixing up a few different issues. It's important that you don't do that. Government needs government revenue. So what you're suggesting is to make housing more affordable. The solution. Hold on, my friend. You need to listen. Rule number 1 in class: if you're not actively listening, you're missing a lot. All right. So your solution, I'm going to have the candidates respond to this, is that the way that the government, the elected officials, are going to help Caymanians with home ownership and the affordability of homes is to cut into their own, their own resources. The government takes resources, money to operate and to run. Okay.
So, Ms. Sandra, you think it's fair that when Mark Scotland and John signed a contract with Health City for 30 years, that every hospital they open in Cayman, everything they ever do? Obviously, I respect the hospital, the medical industry, because it's very important to the country. They got 30-year concession. You think it's fair that every hotel that built from now for the next 50 years, you don't pay no duty?
So your solution to that is to impact government coffers by saying everybody should be getting...
But the government already impact their coffers by giving the big developers concessions.
No,
so
but
why the government
you're saying now to expand that to other businesses and other contractors.
Miss Sandra, you gotta be fair. Call us speed. Miss Sandra, listen to what I say carefully. A lot of things behind the scenes go on. That every hotel that built, that's why. Don't get me wrong, every hotel that built is good for the economy, for tourism. I have no problem with that. All I saying, Miss Sandra, I give a simple math. I got 500,000 my account. I want to build my house. Every material I bring for my house, I don't buy nothing local. I want a concession. That's what I'm saying.
All right, let's have the candidates answer the question.
All right, cool.
All right, no problem. Yeah. Wayne, this is a very interesting proposition. I mean, I see a lot of issues with it, but tell me what you think.
I think there are elements that the caller is of his points that are fair. I think, in general, I understand your perspective as well. You have to be sort of fair and equitable across the board. Mm-hmm. But for us at the Caymanian Community Party, we're committed to putting the interests of Caymanians, particularly young Caymanians, first in this particular instance. We believe that their access to housing is critically important. We believe they should have housing security. And there are a number of solutions that we are proposing which will relate to both people who are younger, people who are middle-aged and older. So we want, even young professional Caymanians nowadays are having issues. So, one of the points he made was that governments in the past have granted concessions for these very significant projects, many of which of late in particular have been priced in the range of $5 million up to $15 or $20 million, none of which Caymanians can really afford, and none of which will address the housing issues that are challenges that we have. So we would certainly be more interested in supporting developers who are building more affordable homes that our Caymanians can participate in by granting them specific types of concessions. Mm-hmm. Those are the areas when you're utilizing concessions as a policy tool, as a lever to achieve certain things, you do that when you have an economy that perhaps is struggling overall, and you need to do certain things to boost economic activity, or you need to use it as a tool to leverage and incentivize a particular area of activity. And this is one of the things we're talking about here. And so I agree with him in the context of specifically granting concessions to developers who are producing these kinds of products that our Caymanians need, and to be able to to achieve their goals in terms of home ownership. So I'm sure M probably shares the same view on that as a young Caymanian. I mean, I've dealt with many young Caymanians and assisted them when I was Premier and Minister for Finance in achieving those objectives. So I know the challenges that they face.
Yes.
And we want to do everything we can, and if we have to incentivize that, then we do that.
Yeah. And I think solutions, I mean, M can obviously jump in here, but I think when we look at, to the caller's point, when we look at solutions that will benefit Caymanians, we need to do it where you get a direct benefit. You're not relying on a third party to pass on their benefit to you, right?
Yes.
So we're not looking at A.L. Thompson's, who's going to save on work permits and all this other stuff to go, oh yeah, we may or we may not.
Just to make a point, this is where, as previous administrations and as a country, we have failed in the past. We know from various Auditor General reports, for example, that concessions have been granted, but none of the conditions that were set to those concessions were ever monitored.
Exactly.
So what is the point of granting the conditions if you're never going to monitor them?
Yeah.
And I don't, to be honest, overall, I think the approach of granting concessions to effectively guarantee the profit margins of developers who are selling products that aren't helping Caymanians directly in terms of housing, I think is a flawed approach. As I said, it has concessions and incentives have a role, an important role when it is needed. But lately, for the last 5 years or so, other than perhaps the arguments around getting the economy restarted after COVID, it really wasn't necessary. And as my administration didn't grant any concessions to any developers, although we got significant requests. You typically get these kinds of requests because they have been entertained in the past. Em, I don't know if you want to share a view in terms of a younger person's perspective.
Certainly. I speak for many young people when I say that it's very near and dear to our hearts that we can at some point own property in our own country and have that sense of generational wealth that we can build and take pride in and nurture a home or a piece of land, and we grow fruit trees or something to that effect, right? But it's also about making sure that government responsibly invests in ensuring that young people have access to housing and that are vulnerable can access housing. It's a basic human right. And it's not necessarily about young Caymanians wanting affordable housing. We want to afford housing, full stop. It's come time that we really examine as a government and as a parliament how we make sure that we meet this need for the many, right? Giving concessions on a large scale is meeting the wants of the few, and it comes at the cost of being able to invest in the needs of the many, right? So if concessions were not given and that duty was collected, the idea is that fund or that funding, that money is reinvested back into the community, whether it's road infrastructure, it's our hospital, it's our schools, to where, if you're building a building that can now hold an extra, say, 200, 250 people, our roads, our hospitals, our social nets can support that growth, whether it's just transient tourists or the residences. So having not collected those means that we do not have that money, and it's showing. It's showing when we have a lot of traffic and we don't have robust investments in, say, public transport, until quite recently when, the public transport bill was recently passed, and that's progress, but we need to move a little faster and see that it's much more efficient to collect duty on developments where it's going to actually make a difference in the people in the people's lives in the community, right? Giving concessions to a major developer it's a drop in the bucket what they're not paying, on a wider scale. But it can make a big difference for a young Caymanian trying to build their first home, for example. And as a total resource use and efficiency advisor, I just come with a decision-making lens of efficiency. So is it efficient to where we're looking at how the current model and the current precedent sort of is as you build outward? Should we, dare I say it, start looking to build a little bit more vertically? That way, our finite land is not consumed before we blink, and in a couple of years it's gone. And that land that, should be there to provide habitat for biodiversity or, resilience in a storm is managed responsibly while also meeting the needs for housing for our young people. That's a balance that we can strike, and we need to have people in office who understand that. Finding that balance is absolutely critical, not only to ensuring that young people and vulnerable people have housing and these basic needs met, but just that the country and the community as a whole can weather the storms that are to come.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. So just to remind people that the radio show has now ended at 9:30, but we will continue for a bit longer on our social media channels. So Magdalene says that import duties are not charged on some food items, yet they're no lower in price. No sense in government giving the rebate to the supplier. So Wayne, let's talk about how you have assisted in your last tenure, which I think is something that is oftentimes overlooked. One direct way to assist Caymanians is at 7.5% stamp duty. So let's talk about what your past administration did in relation to that. And I know that recently it was actually finally codified in law because Parliament had not met, but it was a policy position that you had in place that you were actually acting on when you were Minister of Finance.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think what they did more recently was they made changes to the regulations under the Stamp Duty Act. So not any changes under the primary legislation under the Act itself. But yes, so one of the things we did was we, by policy initially, because one of the authorities that the Minister for Finance has is to be able to make discretionary decisions about the imposition of stamp duty. So a policy was created, notwithstanding that power, which actually exists without the authority of cabinet, but notwithstanding that power, that was brought to cabinet, set out as a cabinet policy, where Caymanians, first-time Caymanian homeowners and second-time Caymanian homeowners had the opportunity to be able to acquire property at either no stamp duty rates or at significantly discounted stamp duty rates. And then, of course, what was recognized was that the valuations of properties have been going up very significantly. So raw land, housing, individual homes or condos, apartments, these types of things have been going up in significant value. So the parameters for that were significantly expanded as well. I believe that those have been increased slightly more recently as a result of the changes to the regulations. But broadly, there were significant benefits. I think we probably, certainly in the 2.5 years that I was premier, I believe it was somewhere in the region of $9 or $10 million worth of concessions and abatements granted in respect to that to help young Caymanians to be able to, acquire these homes. And this, one of the challenges there was just being more efficient about it and responding faster. Because, of course, in Cayman, we have unrestricted right of ownership for anyone around the world. And that is one of the things that has been a challenge, because young Caymanians who are trying to buy a property have to go and typically seek financing. And that is a process that takes some time. Whereas someone else from overseas who has the same right to own property in Cayman, and if they have the cash, they can go and do an offer immediately, and even ask for a discount to the asking price. To say, I'm going to give you cash in 2 weeks' time. Most Caymanians are not in that position. So,
will your government be looking at any options of restricting foreign ownership?
Well, it's not something that we are. I can't say we're not considering ways of sort of leveling the playing field to ensure that Caymanians are not unduly at a disadvantage, in trying to acquire properties when they have got to wait for a financing process, whereas somebody else can just come along and say, I've got the cash, I'm going to buy it right now. What I would love to see Caymanian developers who are developing properties that can be, that are within the range and the type that our young Caymanians and older Caymanians would want to purchase. I would love to see them taking a position, a policy position, if you will, that says, we're going to try to give that advantage to Caymanians and not just take an offer from anybody who comes along. I know that everybody's in the business to make money, but if you're a Caymanian, let's stand by our own Caymanians as well. Let's stand by our young people who are seeking to try to, achieve something in life and put down roots and build a family and be a part of a productive part of our society. We've had so many issues and recognition that I think Rolston mentioned it earlier. We've had so many issues with our young people saying that they are not, they're not going to come back home after having an education because they don't see opportunities, or some that are here that want to leave. We've got to change that. We've got to try to rebalance those issues so that our Caymanians don't feel at a disadvantage and are not in fact at a disadvantage. And however we can do that, whether it's through encouragement, whether it's through policy and legislation, I think it's worthy of consideration.
All right, let's take a comment or a question from our caller. Good morning, caller.
Pleasant good morning, Aunt Sandra. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Panton.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Miss Emily.
Hi, good morning.
We have a problem at the National Housing Trust.
Okay.
We got people into that department that who is working into government and they are on the board. That should not be.
All right, so let me clear. Hold on. Let's clarify. You're saying that people work for government and it's somewhere else in government, and they're also on the National Housing Trust Board.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other thing is, a lot of people has been filling out application. Even to me, I have filled out application over 15 times. And when you check about it, we don't have nothing here for you. The application is being strayed.
Wow.
Well, that would be very, very unfair and unfortunate. And I mean, the fact that you are expressing that concern is a concern to me.
And the other thing is,
an application, they should be able to demonstrate to you that they have received your application.
Absolutely.
And they have you on record.
Process, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And over there in East End, if you check the individuals that got the homes, is expats. It's nobody from East End. It's very few that you can count on your fingers. Then who get these homes
they're supposed to
in
be
the spin?
now hold on a second. They are supposed to be Caymanians, but I do want to remind you that the definition of a Caymanian is obviously broader than what you might think. They don't necessarily have to be East Enders. So for example, one young lady that I know recently moved into the homes in West Bay, she is from Georgetown, but she was happy to move to West Bay to get a more affordable housing option from government. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you submitted an application to the Housing Trust?
I'm about to do it at this present time as we speak.
Okay, when was the last time
what
you
I'm
did
doing at this present time, I'm taking copies of everything
Mm-hmm.
and getting somebody to sign it into that office.
Yes.
To hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When I call, I want to find out, okay, I'm checking about the application form for John Brown. They cannot tell me, well, okay, we did not receive it. I have copies stating that the person who received it. You see, into that office is too much people that know, okay, when I put it in there, the first thing that when I went inside, an individual walked out that know me. And the other person who is working on the board, who was there into that office is on the board.
I mean,
you know what I mean? To me, when you're going to put somebody there.
Hold on. You're saying someone who works in the National Housing Trust office is on the board as well?
Correct.
That doesn't make any sense.
Let me tell you something. In Cayman, is who you know. You understand me? And when you're going to put somebody on a board, you need to do something about planning and we call architecture and all this kind of stuff. People that they are putting there, they don't have the slightest idea.
All right, send me some details about who these people are on the boards. Let me see what I can find out. Just WhatsApp me.
I will.
Okay, my dear.
I
Thanks
will.
so much. Civil servants acting as board members?
It is not impossible. You know, there are many boards that have civil servants that are members of the boards. It should not be, it shouldn't be dominated by civil servants. And in some cases, if and I believe the Public Authorities Act would definitely apply to the National Housing Development Trust, because that is a statutory authority. That has certain limitations on the ability for civil servants to be voting members.
Yes,
and also the composition is limited, or their participation on the board is limited to a certain number, percentage.
So they're probably ex officio members, I think, is where the confusion may be coming. We do have a caller that has a lot of background noise. Let's just grab this caller. Caller, good morning.
Yeah, I turn off my noise. Sandra, I'm not gonna back one. Do you hear me?
Yeah, but we can hear scratching and all sorts of stuff. Go ahead.
Call I call you, man. I think no, I'm not gonna back one. I was saying, right, one of the main issues in the Cayman Islands is consumer regulation or price regulation. So here's the issue. To save Caymanians, we need, when the guys drive the guys that drive the bus, the government pay a guy the parking board in town to see the bus drive across. We need a government to regulate consumer protection in terms of there's nobody going in the supermarket and check that. There should be a law that you can't do 400% markup, 500% markup. We need to regulate consumer protection or price. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but my point is that to protect Caymans from day one, any government are getting power, they set up consumer protection, meaning that Ms. Sandra, you bring in your cameras. I know that you're not charging 500%, right? But there's no regulation neither. That's stuff you do. If you say to me that you want to sell your camera for $1,000, there's nobody regulate that you can't do it, right?
Yeah, so you're advocating price control, which is very different than consumer protection. But let's see what the candidates have to say about that.
But you understand what I'm saying,
yes,
right?
I understand your question.
So there's nobody in America, they got somebody that go in the supermarket and check price control. If we go in the supermarket right now and milk 300%, the inspectors say, hey, what's that can't work. Drop that. We know what you're bringing in for. Even Miss Sandra, water is duty free in this country. Water is duty free. And you know what the price of water is? Water is duty free. You know what is supermarket selling water for?
All right, thank you. We got the question. Thanks very much. So, price control.
Yeah, and that's what that boils down to, right? It is an attempt at price control, which is distinct from
consumer
protection issues.
Absolutely.
Which is more about that you get value for that you get the product performing the way it is sold to you as. But yeah, price controls are a very difficult thing to try to manage and impose, and historically around the world in various economies that may have tried it from time to time, and it's usually heavily sort of socialist or communist economies that try it in the main. I'm not saying it doesn't apply in certain areas, but you end up with lots of difficulties, and it triggers a lot of imbalances in the economy. I mean, I used to use the example of Venezuela had 4 or 5 factories that made toilet paper, for example, and their government said, well, this is how much you're going to be able to sell toilet paper for. So they imposed price controls on toilet paper, and that caused all of the factories to go out of business.
Exactly.
So they couldn't get any toilet paper in the country then.
Yeah. The bottom line is consumers.
It's a good idea it sounds like a really good idea, but it's not always achievable. I mean, things like saying, like they did in the US, you can only charge a certain amount for insulin and this sort of thing. Those types of things can probably work, but you have to be very careful with it.
Yeah, price control doesn't normally work at all to favor the consumer. Caller, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ms. Sandra. This is Jessica.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, guest. I just have a quick question. For the people that are on disability for housing, that you want to apply for a house, for people that aren't able to work, I find it's very difficult that you can't be able to apply for a house. And especially with trying to get an apartment that NEU would accept. So I just want to see if we could try and work on that through the government.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Those are issues that we're very conscious of. Our party leader, Andre Ebanks, was the minister for a long time for social development, and we recognize those issues. He did the change from the Poor Persons Relief Law and dealing with NEU to creating the Department of Financial Assistance and restructuring a lot of the approach and policies around that, which was designed specifically to try to address these issues and address the concerns. And I think by and large, there is the perception, and then nowadays there is the reality. Unfortunately, the perception still outweighs the reality. But I think there are still disconnects that we continue to need to work on. So those are fair comments, and that is certainly a focus that we will have to try to ensure that when government is providing support for people who need that support, that there isn't some aspect in the market which is imposing a negative perception, either because they have received it or because the people don't want to, or the service providers or landlords or whatever don't want to accept it.
I'm going back to the comment from the caller who was saying that there are civil servants on the board. Quite a few people actually are clarifying the point that those are probably ex officio non-voting members, which happens quite often, where basically they will have civil servants on these boards to offer guidance to the board. But they're not actively making decisions or voting. So that is the case on a number of different boards. They will have the technocrats, if you will, the technical experts who are there on the board. So they just wanted to offer that clarification, which I think is a very, very fair point indeed. And to the caller's point about price control, listen, the market will determine what what people are willing to pay. I mean, everybody now has access to information. Sometimes they're not always discerning and quite accurate. So even for, the guy was talking about my dash cams, okay, it's not a 5% markup. That's why I said to anyone, I said, listen, I believe in being fair to consumers. If I'm running a business, which I do, obviously there is a profit margin built in there, but you as just a regular consumer can go online and try to price that item for yourself. Go to Amazon. And I said, buy all the components and price it. When you see what you would have to bring it in for, including, getting it here to Cayman, all of that is taken care of you can see that the price is actually very fair and reasonable. So consumers, you decide. No one is going to go out there and overpay for something. It is the things that we have no control over, which Wayne mentioned, things like healthcare and medicine, utilities. That's where we need government's help in trying to manage some of those things. But we don't need government interference in businesses where government is going to come and tell me what I should charge for product A versus product B and whatever. I think that would be a legal nightmare, logistical nightmare, and it just isn't even needed anymore because you consumers have a lot of power. If you don't purchase something, that company is going to go out of business. As simple as that. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Morning there.
Those types of strategies of price control and socialist stuff, that just take a look at Argentina. That it destroyed the country. Mm-hmm. It threw the whole country into turmoil. Yeah. And they're trying to dig their way out of it now. Their inflation rate went as high as, I think it was like 145 or 49% a year. I mean, that's outrageous.
Yeah. And the good thing, Denny, is, listen, we're not saying that we have all the solutions and we're perfect, but the world that we live in, we have so many examples of where things haven't worked, right? And where things have worked. So whether we're talking about looking at the school system in Finland that has an excellent program, or if we're looking at failures in Venezuela and Argentina and all over Latin and South America of economic initiatives and systems, even in the US right now, everybody's watching how the tariffs war will play out for the average consumer. If those things don't work for those countries on a larger scale and they don't benefit the consumer, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're not going to work for us or benefit us either. So I love the fact that our listeners are thinking about solutions, but before you kind of throw it out there thinking, oh, this is a great one, maybe El Clase, pay attention, do a little bit of research to see if your solution has actually worked anywhere else. And if you can't find that it's worked anywhere else, there's probably a good reason for that. Danny?
Yeah, so when I listen to the suggestions that people make, what I hear them say is, how can the government help bring the cost down? Mm-hmm. I prefer to look at it from the other perspective. How can government position workers and businesses to make more money? And which brings me to the point of immigration. And
I thought you were going to say minimum wage.
No. That's an entirely separate conversation.
But it's a relevant conversation.
Yeah, it is relevant, but from the perspective of us competing with people who are willing to work for third world wages, which drags the basic wage down to zero. Yeah, that's the main issue. But I think the better way to address it is that the unfortunate thing, the way the law works at the moment, is that the Caymanian has to be as qualified as someone else who's being brought in on a permit and compared against that person. It should be reversed. The way the policy should be worded is that all jobs are for Caymanian. That should be the default position. The exception to that rule should be that in certain circumstances, you can get a work permit for certain positions. But it shouldn't be that if the Caymanian is as qualified as the expat being brought in, it should be, is the Caymanian qualified to do the job? and if the Caymanian is, they should get the job. And I think what that a change in the policy in that way would allow for Caymanians to move up the economic scale when positions or work permits become or they expire, and Caymanians can move up.
Okay.
Now, one of the other things that I think need to also be done is that the definition of Caymanian, the way that it's worded right now and treated, it divides the categories of Caymanians between those who have it by right and those who have it by grant. And I think the ones who have it by right, that term should be called Caymanian. Now, I know that Rolston and others have recommended that it be generational Caymanian. And the second category, which is by grant, they feel should be Caymanian status. The problem that I have with that sort of terminology is that it gives the impression that being a generational Caymanian is not having Caymanian status, which is inaccurate. I believe that the way it should be worded is that those who have it by grant would be called new Caymanians, and those who have it by right would be called Caymanian. That way, you understand the similarity that we're dealing with something that is in category-wise similar, and it's reflective of the reality.
Let me ask you a question, Denny. When you start to divide people with these names, new Caymanian, half-breed Caymanian, old Caymanian, 2-generational Caymanian, 5-generational Caymanian, do you not think that we're dividing each other more than we're bringing each other together?
When you use the terminology generational Caymanian, I think yes. But the reason why the definitions that I've suggested do not divide Caymanians is because legally there is a distinction between someone who has Caymanian status as a right. For example, you can run for office, whereas someone who has obtained Caymanian status by grant, meaning a first-generation Caymanian, cannot run for office. So there is a legal distinction, and therefore you should have terminology that makes that distinction
But to be fair, there's probably only that one that you pointed out is probably one of the only few things where there is a distinction at all. In most instances, and this is why I always tell Caymanians, you're on par with that other person. They're going to have the same housing rights. That's why you're seeing them moving into housing, East End and West Bay and all over. Same rights to scholarship and education and everything else.
And that's why I think that the word Caymanian should be in both. Yeah. But the word new just makes the distinction between the person who can run for office versus the person who can't run for office.
And you need to know that when you look at that person.
Why?
Because of what reason?
Well, when you're writing legislation, how would you distinguish between the two? You have to have a difference.
Why is the distinction necessary is my question.
Because
what Caymanians want is, in a real sense, to be able to have opportunities, job opportunities, et cetera, right? So this concept, which I know we seem to be focusing a little bit of a hyper focus in this election, is that we need to call ourselves something else. And my question is why?
Yeah.
Well,
can I just say, Denny, why don't you come along to the party launch tomorrow evening at Pedro St. James? Great place to have discussions about democratic principles and how we should title ourselves. I tend to agree that there is a big risk that we end up creating divisions within our society which are unhelpful to a cohesive society. But happy to have those conversations. So come along and let's have a chat about it.
Well, the distinction that I'm that I'm referencing exist in existing law. So I'm not asking for the law to be changed in that regard. It's already the law.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
But
Thanks, Jenny.
what you're asking is for titles to be placed on individuals,
for the purposes,
you draw distinctions, and that's where you tend to get. And I'm not saying I'm against any of it. I'm just saying there are risks associated with it. But I would really love to be able to, because we're kind of running down on time, Auntie Sandy.
Yes, and
I'd
people
love
want to hear
be
more
able
from
to-
Emily as well. I've just heard.
Yeah,
so.
because we have
more
some
questions.
really
Thanks,
important additional comments. I'm sorry, Danny. I don't mean to cut you there at all.
Let's
I'm
go back
inviting
to
you
these
to come
questions.
to the event, and we're happy to have those discussions.
Yeah. We got another question for Emily, if we can just jump into these. So let's try to get to a few more of these, because people were like, we want to hear more from Emily. Environmental advocacy versus economic interests is the heading of this one. This question is, as a longtime environmental activist, how do you propose to reconcile? Let's let her answer questions without any more calls for the remainder. How do you propose to reconcile environmental conservation efforts with the economic interests of the Cayman Islands, particularly in sectors like tourism and development?
Well, that's a really good question. One thing I would say is that a lot of people sort of infer that they're exclusive of one another, that you can't have a healthy economy if all you do is conserve our natural resources. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, it's a healthy economy and a healthy community that are dependent on a healthy natural environment. So as a former financial services industry professional, I'm also a very justice-driven individual, and that's what spurred me to pivot completely from working in the corporate world, where I did my best to see how the two could merge to where, at least in my firm, we were having more investors who were committed to making sort of balanced investments. That being said, it's a heavy transition to incorporate, and there's no one size fits all. So that's why I opened my consultancy firm, to be able to guide persons. And even though I'm not, even though I am planning on running for, becoming a member of parliament, and I am doing that, it's about helping to see where we can create decision-making principles that allow us to balance our environment's stewardship with ensuring that our economy grows. Again, they're not exclusive of one another. And in fact, in many regards, protecting our environment protects our economy, right? So if we were, as an example, to say, quantify the value of an acre of, let's say, wetlands or seagrasses or coral reefs, and saw that in contrast, if we developed those for anything, so development, tourism, how would that affect us long term in terms of how much are we losing in post-disaster costs, right? If we were to develop all of our wetlands, as an example, the cost to repair these islands, because they no longer have that natural protection and resilience, I don't even think the calculator has enough space to quantify that amount we would lose. So it's something that I'm really keen to bring, is to bring about a bit of a cultural change where people think along those lines, where it's not that we're anti-development, it's about being pro-sustainable development in sectors like tourism, and making sure that we are, like I said, balancing development so that we're meeting the needs of the many versus not necessarily continuing to prioritize the wants of the few at the expense of the community long term, right? So vanity projects that are meant to just be seasonal or not used 24/7, don't provide year-round environmental protection, are not a healthy investment in our communities. It's not contributing to food security. It's not contributing to increasing supply of affordable housing, right? It's about making sure that people have that hat on of balancing growth.
Okay. All right. Next question says transition to consultancy. After the 2021 elections, you established your own consultancy firm. How has this venture influenced your political perspectives, and what insights have you gained that could inform your approach to policymaking?
That's a really, I keep saying that's a good question, but these are really good questions. And I do appreciate that whoever sent them to you took the time to write them out. Through being a consultant, I've been able to get a strong real world experience when it comes to guiding businesses, individuals, and organizations in transitioning to more resource efficient lifestyles and operations. It's, again, going back to my point, there's no one size fits all solution when it comes to sustainability. It's given me such a, not only a local way of thinking, in the sense of I can see how Cayman as a country and these three beloved isles can transition to more resource efficient habits across many industries that would help to protect our culture. But it's also taught me that education is really critical to getting people to see the value of transitioning to more resource efficient lifestyles and operations. When I teach young people and children, primary school students, about the importance of our wetlands, you can see the light bulbs go off, and you can see how they light up and connect this humble tree to the things that they love about Cayman. And it's framing it from that perspective. It's about looking at it from a perspective of abundance and not scarcity. As well as being a consultant, I've been able to travel regionally. So seeing where other countries in the region, where they have tried to, merge modern economic growth with preserving their culture, and seeing how we can learn from them, partner with them, collaborate with them, and seeing how we can collectively as a region work towards addressing some of these issues that are, parallel in different regions, right? So as a consultant, I've been able to travel to Guyana as well as St. Martin, the Dutch side. And it's been the honor of a lifetime to get to represent Cayman in both of these jurisdictions. And having worked with multiple nonprofits as well in the last couple of years since transitioning to my consultancy, it's been very, very eye-opening in the sense of, I knew that a lot of issues existed, but to see it firsthand while working within these various organizations at a leadership position, it's opened my eyes, like I said, to seeing how vital it is that we fill those gaps to where, a nonprofit generally exists because of a systemic shortcoming of some kind, right? So how can we address the things that these nonprofits are seeking to achieve in a collaborative way with our communities, so where everybody's working in tandem, right? We've got people at an individual level, a consumer level, a voter level. As a citizen, we've also got our markets, our businesses, and we've got policy. And how can we see those three systems work together to change to where we're seeing outcomes that deliver positive quality of life and, safeguarding for our vulnerable, our children, our elderly, and making sure that we, like I said, kind of to come full circle, is balancing growth with economic development in a way that's balanced and, meets the needs of the many.
All right. And final question from this individual is LGBTQ plus advocacy. In October 2023, you were appointed as the president of Colors Caribbean, the first LGBTQ plus nonprofit organization incorporated in the Cayman Islands. In that role, you led efforts to support and advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, providing resources and promoting exclusivity across the region. The Cayman Islands, inclusivity, my apologies, across the region. The Cayman Islands have a very diverse cultural landscape with varying views on LGBTQ plus issues. How do you navigate these cultural sensitivities while advocating for equal rights And what strategies have proven effective in fostering dialogue and understanding within the community?
Well, interestingly enough, the answer to that question is in the question. That last line about, fostering dialogue and understanding is very critical. It's about meeting people at their level in as best a way that you can to navigate these, cultural sensitivities around the topic. Mm-hmm. It's about just breaking it down for people that a person who is a member of this community, which the full way that we describe it is LGBTQIA+, and the A also stands for ally. And at the end of the day, we should all be allies to this community. We should all see it as something to value, that we prioritize the safety of our young people who are in this community, their wellness, their mental health, that they're being taken care of. But everybody in this community is able to contribute to society when they are not seen as just a label, right? It's generally their most interesting feature is how they identify, what a person does in the privacy of their own home to make themselves happy is really not society's business. And, the myths that have been perpetuated for generations and which continue to influence a lot of people's behavior are, you have to approach it very compassionately and gently and come
at the end of the day, this is about being kind to all members of our society and being respectful. Now, the standards should be the same for everybody, right? Standards of behavior should be the same for everybody. Mm-hmm. But public behavior, I mean. But this is about being kind, and this is about recognizing that we're not all going to be identical, and we're all going to have various differences. And where it doesn't hurt anybody else, this is just about respect and kindness and tolerance. Absolutely. Anyway, Sandra, I keep running out of time. I keep trying to get back to this. I want to talk about the launch tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon.
Yes. We've got it here.
5 to 9. Thank you, Emily. You did a great job in responding to all those questions, and I think it's you certainly made it very clear there that we are a party about balance, about ensuring that we can survive as an economy, and we can be even stronger as an economy in terms of getting the balance right between people, planet, and profits. And that is the essential thing. I think some of the existing parties have just been parties that have just got the balance wrong over the years, and they have been special interest related, and promoting growth at all costs and development at all costs, and that development at the end of the day has to benefit this country. It has to benefit us. And it has to benefit us in a balanced way. So, for example, we are in favor of the East-West extension, but it has to be done, and it is being done. And finally, as a result of the efforts, that certainly I feel that I have brought to the table over the last 2 years and pounding to get this done, we're now in a position to have the EIA assist, the results of the EIA assist in the safe development of this project. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore. What I really want to talk about is to go back to the launch, which is tomorrow afternoon, starting at 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Pedro St. James. I said before, this is about community. It's about connection. It's about real conversations about Cayman's future. And we've certainly had some really good conversations this morning that can form the basis for further discussions there. Just to put it in context, one of the things we are doing there is we are going to have what's called a conversation corner. And it is going to be a chance for real direct discussions with the Caymanian Community Party candidates. So basically the MC will be saying, you can join Emily DuCou in the conversation corner, in 5 minutes time or right now or whatever, and go and discuss with her things that you want to discuss in relation to Georgetown East, or any other particular area that you want to discuss, whether it's a national issue, whether it's a local constituency issue. So that is going to be available to all candidates, all persons who are present, to go and have conversations with the candidates. Of course, there's going to be interactive activities with our children. So great learning opportunities, amazing opportunities to have fun and enjoy themselves and learn a lot. We have district booths where we're going to learn about candidates' plans and share their thoughts. We're sort of combining them, the Panton as a district and Georgetown as a district, West Bay as a district, which is where our candidates are. So there'll be the opportunity to talk about, those regions and issues and concerns that need to be addressed there. Of course, it wouldn't be a great launch without having wonderful local food. So we're going to have all these games and food and this incredible, relaxed, welcoming atmosphere, good fun, really interesting things, holograms, all sorts of stuff. It's just fun, really fun things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to all of that Wayne has just shared, it's going to be a really wonderful, engaging community events where we, the members of the Caymanian Community Party, are going to be there to connect with people. It's not just going to be a typical political rally where it's just long speeches and we're talking at you. No, we're going to be on the ground working alongside you in Parliament, and we want to show you that we really genuinely care from the bottom of our hearts, right? And one way that we're going to be doing that is we're going to actually have an entire section of the event dedicated to our new youth council. So over at the Thatch and Barrel part of Pedro, the grounds is where our inaugural chair, Leanne Tibbetts, is going to be managing the youth council's first event, to share, news about the council, to engage with young voters and give them a place to where their voices can be heard. And we're going to have some materials from Alex Panton Foundation so that young people can go home with something to take care of their mental wellness as well. But yeah, it's going to be a wonderfully lovely, casual evening with the stunning Caribbean Sea as the backdrop, around sunset, and there's going to be good cooked food. So please come out, good Caymanian. It's a beautiful place to connect with our heritage. As Wayne was saying, Pedro is the birthplace of democracy. It's a very nostalgic location in Cayman for many, myself included. And, it's going to be absolutely stunning and a memorable event that we're really excited to get to meet more people and see a sea of TCCP supporters. Trying that 10 times fast. And we really want people to come out and to work, to talk with us and to share their thoughts, and our young people to come out and to see what we have and to be able to incorporate their voices into our decisions. As much as I'm a young person with a perspective, I would never expect to or hope to work alone, and neither would my team. And so it's really important that we get that broad view generationally, not just from our young people, but from our elderly, so we can see how we can collectively charter the future that we want for these beloved Cayman Islands.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
A little bit more, if I could, on the youth council. I'll just add to what Em has covered. So it'll be for young people ages 16 to 30. As we've both said, ensure that their voices are heard, and to provide input on policy making, and to really play a very active role in the party's decision-making process. We are determined to take a different approach than other parties have taken in this country. The other parties in this country tend only to become active and do anything when it comes to elections. So they are really not parties for the people. They are election machines to try to get candidates elected. We don't want any of that. We know what it's like to do this thing right. The youth council to me is really important for so many reasons, but I was, as premier, I did something which had never been done before, and that was we brought in a group of young people to speak to caucus directly, to provide youth perspectives and concerns to caucus, and it was an incredible event. You know, there was a lot of emotion on sort of both sides, and the reality is, and what I'm the only disappointment, the only regret I have, I should say, really, is that we didn't continue doing it on a regular basis. So this youth council for us is going to be an integral part of the party's operations and government's operations. When we are the government, we will have this youth council and the chair of the youth council attending caucus meetings to be able to provide that youth perspective on all matters. What happens typically is all of the special interests come and they make appointments and they ask different people to arrange to have these meetings with caucus to put their point of view across. That's great. But we have historically not taken young people's views into account. And as I said before, young people have far more invested in the future in the country than many of us that will be candidates. And I'm not speaking necessarily for Em at this point because she's a lot younger than me. But we want to make sure that their voices are there, so that decisions that are made 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, the youth perspective on how that is going to impact them as they transition through growing and developing and going through midlife and becoming seniors and all that, that future is as they envision it is reflected in those decisions. So it's going to be great. We're going to have Miss Leanne Tibbetts there. She's a inaugural chair of the Youth Council. She's a proven leader with lots of experience in community service. We all know her as a Cayman Airways pilot, and she has now transitioned from that role. She's done national service through the Cadet Corps, the Coast Guard, and of course she's a former Miss World Cayman Islands and has a degree in aviation management. So really amazingly talented young lady who is going to bring a lot of energy and interest to the Youth Council. And I'm so looking forward to having continued engagement with her, reflecting the interests of young people and making sure that their perspectives are heard on a consistent basis by government, and not just when elections come around, or the odd occasion that you might buck them up on the street. No, the youth perspective has to be incorporated in policy making at all levels.
All right. Well, thank you very much. On that note, we appreciate you coming on the program. Lots of people got their questions answered. Of course, we can't get them all in. We'd be here all day, but continue to tune in. We've got a number of candidates. The TCCP will be here normally on Wednesdays, but this week, obviously, we had Ash Wednesday, so we kind of flipped them onto Friday. But we've got Rolston now. We've got Miss Julie. We've got Jewel Hides, who I think should be coming on soon. So this is an opportunity for you to get to know your candidates a bit more. We're also going to be doing some candidate features with the candidates. This is it, folks. You've got until literally April the 30th is election day to make your decisions. We've got the polls up on the website. I will tell you guys a bit more about those, but they're now live, where you can go in and pick the candidate of your choice. We'll have that running until the 31st of the month, and then we're going to relaunch it for the last month heading into the election cycle as well. So we'd like to thank Emily DuCou, running for Georgetown East.
Just the way if it's helpful, East and M start with the same letter.
Yes, that's helpful. So I just need to have my list. I'm going to print it off and keep it right in front of me. I need to have my list up here.
Yes.
But yes, and of course, Queen Panton, who is running for Newlands, the constituency of Newlands. We thank both of these TCCP members. And of course, again, they're having a launch event tomorrow at Pedro Castle. So come out and enjoy that event. Thank you guys very much.
5 to 9 p.m. Look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you very much.
The Cayman Community Party is launching and you're invited. Join us Saturday, March 8th from 5 to 9 at Pedro St. James for an evening of community, connection, and conversation. Live music from Heat and Vashti Bodin, fun for the kids, and real talk with TCCP candidates, plus local food and district booths.
The Caymanian Community Party is doing things differently. This isn't about speeches. It's about bringing people together, listening, and shaping a better future.
Admission is free, so bring the whole family. Learn more at Vote TCCP or follow us on social media. TCCP, enough is enough. The change starts now.
I will be tuned in this election cycle to CMR Cayman Election Headquarters.
Cayman, get prepared for election 2025. CMR, your election headquarters, is ready to keep you informed with candidate features, debates, analysis, interviews, and honing in on the issues that matter the most. Don't miss a beat. Keep it locked to Cayman Marl Road for your complete election coverage.
Hey Cayman, this election season, I'll be tuned in to Cayman's election headquarters, CMR, who else? So let's get informed and let's vote smart. Bye!
All right, folks, that's what it's all about, getting informed and voting as smart as you can, looking at all of your different options, some wonderful questions put together for each of the individual candidates, specific to them, which is what I quite liked, actually. So thank you for that. Well-educated civil servant, Caymanian, of course, holding people accountable. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the program. As you know, I kind of, well, some of you did know that I was off island yesterday and Wednesday, and I came back last night. So I've got to sort out all the dash cams. I've got my list of those of you who had requested them. So don't worry, you're good to go. I'll start distributing those today. And please, it's Friday, which means we're heading into the weekend. Wishing you a safe and happy weekend. No drinking and driving. I keep begging y'all, don't do that. And of course, get your dash cams and get them installed as soon as possible, because they're very, very useful tools in a number of different situations for your safety, road safety. And, you just feel so much more confident on the roadway knowing that when someone runs into you, they just can't blame you for the accident because you've got the proof that it wasn't your fault. There you have it. All right, folks, have a wonderful weekend. We're back here on Monday. Monday, we will have some open mic opportunity. We also have candidate Alric Lindsay, who is going to be joining us. He's running for Georgetown South, my apologies. And he'll be on the program. And you're going to start to hear now, not just from more candidates, but you're going to see a lot more stuff posted on social media. We're going to be doing some of the featured interviews and so on as well. So really, really exciting time. I'm excited. I get very, as you guys know, into the entire election cycle. I enjoy it. This is our second election cycle as being part of the CMR team, and it's going to be a great one. I got every weekend, every weekday night, so much going on. So you guys will see me all over the place, honey child, and I'm happy to be there. And just keep it locked here, because Cayman Marl Road brings you all of the information, all the stuff on your candidates. Like I said, we've told you one is already ineligible, and we might actually do an interview with him. So we're going to chat with him and see how he feels about that, so you can get all the details of exactly what happened. All right. So have a great weekend. See you guys on Monday. And of course, stay tuned to our social media channels, because that is where you get the meetings. We got lots of meetings now that are live streaming all over the place. You'll get all of that information. So make sure you keep it locked right here to Cayman Marl Road. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth. on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.